And as soon as we leave, we see this lady on the shore, and she's waving at the ship.
Oh no.
And her husband is on the boat, and he's like, Tammy,
Nay.
that is my wife up there. Okay.
Dear viewers, dear listeners, thank you for joining the Boat Bike Tours podcast again. I'm Ennie, I'm your host for this episode, and I usually work in marketing and sales, but today I get to talk with two experts of our world. So that's first of all Romy who works at the Boat Bike Tours office in sales, specifically group sales, and she also does the quality management. And then we have Tamara Veenendaal, and she is a tour guide. So we get to talk about both the behind the scenes when booking the tour and then the tour itself. So thank you guys for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
So I think it's best if you introduce yourselves first of all. So Romy, can we start with you? Can you tell us something about your background and how you got to Boat Bike Tours and how long you're working for the company already?
Yes, of course. So I am Romy. I am 32 years old. I started with Boat Bike Tours when I was 18 as an intern. And I never left the company. I started at sales and now doing mainly the charters and the quality, as you already said. And it's such the product we offer is so nice, and the people in the office and also the people in the field like Tamara, it's we have so warm people that makes working at Boat Bike Tours so lovely, and that's why I'm still there. So
Great. How about you,
Nice.
Tamara?
I'm Tamara. Most people, especially the guests, will know me as Tammy. 'Cause, especially with the English speaking, I usually go by Tammy. And I've been a tour guide since 2012, so 13 years now. Before that, I was a mountain bike instructor, and I don't do that much anymore now. I'm half Italian, half Dutch, and I kind of rolled into it. That's literally with the biking, but because I'm a social worker, I used to be social worker. And then I met someone who was guiding, and they said, they are always hiring. And I thought, that is nice. And I can ride my bike, and I'm with the guests every day.
That sounds
So,
amazing.
yeah.
And because both of you have been working for the company for a long time, I want to talk with you today about especially the evolution of the travel industry. So my first question to both of you is, how has it changed from the past?
excuse me. So when we started as a company, we only had self-guided tours or semi-guided tours, which means that there was only one tour guide on board, and the guests can cycle on their own or with the help of, we say in Dutch, knooppuntenbriefjes. Back then there was no ride with GPS. And Yossi came in our company, and she said, well, American guests love to cycle with a guide, and there needs to be two guides on board instead of one. So then we changed the concept, and on our premium tours, we scheduled two tour guides on one tour instead of one. That meant a big change because there was more individual contact with the tour guide. There was more personal guidance, and that was a big change in by Boat Bike Tours.
Mm-hmm.
And with the guiding, I think, but that was a long time ago, we used paper maps.
How long was that ago?
Oh, that was in 18...
But you're not that old, right?
I reincarnated. Well, when I started in 2012, I already used my GPS. But there were still colleagues that were not using the Ride with GPS system yet. And in some of the places, you just have to you just had to figure it all out on the map. And if there was a deviation, you had to look in the map again. And a very big difference is also the phone. Nowadays, when I prepare for my tours, I do that usually in the winter months when there's no tours to do. So I'm at home. I can just study everything on the internet, look everything up. But a lot of things you can also look it up during the tour. And 12 years ago, at least I didn't have the smartphone that I have now. So 12 years ago, I had to prepare much more before the tour. And now it's like, what is this? Oh, what is that? Oh, just look it up. And you look it up quickly on your phone, on the Google, and Google helps you out a lot.
Oh my God.
So that is very big difference.
I can imagine.
yeah.
Sorry. That you guided without a cell phone.
Yeah.
But if you were lost, what did you do?
Yeah, you just had to figure it out either on the GPS. I had my GPS. So you look it up on the GPS, you look it up on the map. But yeah, it was way more difficult. You could also not call ahead, call a restaurant saying that you were coming or that you were delayed. So that was it's really weird because if I think about it now, like, how did we do that 13, 14 years ago without the Google Maps, without the Google search engine? And I just had to study way more before the tour. I still do that because I'm still a little bit old school in that, and I like to be fully prepared before I go on a tour. So I still study in the wintertime. But every now and then you're riding and then you pass something that maybe you've never seen before. And guest asks you, oh, hey, what's that? And I'm like, what is that? I don't know. And then you just look it up and then you tell the guest, oh, I'll get back to you. And then later in the evening, you're like, oh, you know what? You know that building that we just passed? It was a milk factory or whatever it was. But it's nice that you can look it up now. So it does make our job easier in that way. So you don't have to remember everything.
Also, when I'm thinking about, so all of our guests leave their phone numbers, so you can reach them also in case of an emergency. So in case you're doing unguided tours, where the tours are not fully guided, where not at all times a guide is present. And then an emergency happens, then the guests usually call the guide, right? How did you do that in the old days?
Well, I have never done semi-guided, so I don't know how that was because, I did do semi-guided, but that was during COVID, and we only had semi-guided tours. But I'm a fully guided person. I like to be with the group all day and taking them by the hand and showing things. It did happen that. If something happens and the guest cannot call you, but still that is an issue because, especially from people from overseas like Canada, US, Australia, not always is their phone working, or they don't have an internet plan or Wi-Fi plan, so they don't have Wi-Fi when they're on the bike, so they can still not call you in case of an emergency, or if they don't come back to the meeting point, like after a coffee break or lunch break, and they go for a walk and then they come back and you're like, hey, it's 2:00, but they're not here yet. Yeah, and then you want to call them. You have the number, but they don't answer because either it's on flight mode or they don't have an internet plan. So it's still, even though they have the phone, it's still sometimes very difficult to contact the guest. In case
what do you do in that case?
Sometimes you just wait, and then usually they do show up. I've never lost one.
That's good.
And usually you just wait and you're like, okay, well, and then the bad thing is that the rest of the group needs to wait too, because and then 20 people are waiting for one couple that maybe forgot the time or and then you cannot call them. So that's in my case, I think I always waited for the people to arrive, or sometimes if they were with other people, if they're traveling 4 people and 2 are with a group and the other 2 are not, and then they say, oh yeah, but I think they went shopping or they went this way or that way. And I've also ridden around town to go look for them.
Wow.
and see where they were. And that is actually a funny story. And it was actually at the beginning of the tour. We were doing the bike fitting in Volendam, and there was a party going on in Volendam. So we're doing the bike fitting, and it's close to the quay, so also close to the water. And there was this older guy. He was, I think he was about 84. And he was on an e-bike, and everybody's doing the bike fitting up and down the quay. And okay, everything went well. Everybody comes back. I park the bikes. I'm like, hey, there's a bike missing. One bike's missing. And who's missing? Well, it's Mr. So and so. And I'm like, oh my God. And he's 84. Oh my God, he's in the canal. He's in the lake. He's in the lake. Where is he? We couldn't see him. We couldn't find the bike either. And I'm like, oh my God, where'd he go? So I was a little starting to stress out a bit. And I was supposed to go doing a city walk. So the captain of the ship said, okay, Tammy, you know what? You go on your walk, and we with the crew will start looking for him, and we'll start, one stays on the boat. And okay, so I was a little, okay. And now, okay, I go with the group. But of course, in the meantime, you're like looking everywhere. Oh, where's that guy? Where is that guy? And I already lost one on the first day, and we haven't ridden a mile yet. So, and then halfway through my walk, I got a phone call, and it's the captain. I said, Tammy, we found him. He was just having a drink with the locals.
He got comfortable right away.
Yeah, so he went to do his bike fitting. He drove off, and he found some local people at the bar, and he just parked his bike. He did not lock his bike. And it was an e-bike, and he just stood there. He was drinking a wine with the locals, chatting, and okay, so
That's amazing.
Yeah, sounds like a great plan.
But we talked before that now we accommodate way more international guests, of course. And Romy, you do group charters.
Yeah.
Can you explain them what that means?
So a group charter is if a group make a reservation on the whole ship. So only the group is on board of the ship, no other guests. It's mainly a group who knows each other, or you have one person who organizes this group. For example, Tommy. Tommy does a lot of groups where we call them Tommy tours, where she writes to all the guests who were once on board when Tommy was a tour guide, and all the guests who want Tommy to be their tour guide can then make a reservation on that departure. But we also have tailor-made charters where the group want one specific thing, for example, culture instead of cycling, and then we change the whole itinerary and then make it all about cultural things and going to museums. And instead of they cycle, they are on a bus and they do less cycle, more cultural. So yeah, you can whatever the client wants, we can arrange this.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And because you also do that a lot for international guests, I expect them to have a lot of questions beforehand, because it's a bigger commitment, of course, if you fly from overseas.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
What kind of questions do you get?
So we mainly start 1.5 years before the actual tour is going to happen. So yeah, we are always talking about future things. And now, for example, what's the weather going to be like? and then
And you can tell them, of course.
Of course
she's
I
always
can.
right.
I have this glass bowl next to my computer, and I said, "Okay, what's the weather going to be like?" No, I'm joking. No, it's mainly like the itinerary questions. What kind of facilities do we have on board? What do we need to bring from home? The questions about the bicycles. So I am 6'1". Do I fit on a bicycle? Can I change the pedals? How many gears are on the bicycles? All these type of questions. I get lots of them. Lots. foods on board is very particular and important. So what type of food will be served on board? I have this and this diet. Is that possible? Can you accommodate that? So yeah, very interesting, but nothing too crazy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you've done your job well enough, I hope you won't get too many questions, but do you still get
Yeah.
funny questions sometimes?
Well, especially for bikes, I think. Sometimes they do ask again if they can change the pedals, but we do not like that. I think you do
No,
say that
no,
you can
yeah.
that they cannot change them.
No.
Because a lot of people like to be clipped in with the pedals, and riding in a group, it's just not that safe because you never know when the one in front of you is going to stop. So,
Yeah.
and that is really the reason why we don't want to change the pedals off and on, off and on.
And I also think it's not necessary to,
No.
if you cycle in the Netherlands or in Germany or in Italy, it's not necessary
No.
to cycle on a. You're not on a road bike. You're not that speed that hard. So yeah, clip-ins. Yeah, it's yeah.
No, I think so too. It doesn't really make sense in the type of tours that we're offering. It's
Yeah.
more cultural tour, and if you're doing a mountain bike tour or a road bike tour,
Yeah.
or at least or when you're riding by yourself, but you're really speeding more and you're really making a lot of distance, then I can imagine why people would prefer to have clip-ons, but clip-in pedals. But on these tours, there's it's a lot of stop and go, stop and go, stop and go in front of traffic lights. I did have one guy that he just insisted and he just wanted to have the pedals, and then finally we said, well, okay, we'll change the pedal, and he did put the pedal on, and I think he fell about 40 times in one day.
Oh, no.
Every time we stopped at the traffic light or at the water break or whatever, he just fell over. And well, he did say that it was not due to the pedals, but I think it was due to the pedals because someone in front of you is stopping just like that, and you're not prepared for him to stop, and then you just don't have time enough to get to click your foot out. So
Yeah.
I think it's actually more dangerous to ride with the clip-in pedals. And, but yeah, sometimes they do ask me the same question, although they already asked Romy maybe in the booking whether it was possible. Or with the trike. Last year we had a nice experience with the trike.
Tell me about it.
They actually did ask for a trike because this lady was paralyzed on one side, but she rides her bike at home. She rides a trike, and so she did say that they also booked a trike. But instead of a trike, we got we call it a duo feet, the double bike. So it's like a tandem, but you're sitting next to each other. So it's not really a tandem, but I don't know how to explain it. It's so you sit next to each other, and one is pedaling and is steering, using the handlebars, and the other one is helping with pedaling. But it was we called it a beast because it was almost bigger than the barge. So it was really huge. And it was a big effort every day we had to put the beast on and off and on and off. On and off
Did it fit on the gangway?
No, it did not go on the gangway.
no.
And it was electrical too.
Yeah.
So it was really heavy. So the captain and the sailor, and every now and then I helped, but mostly it was the captain and the sailor. They were, lifting the bike up the boat, and then the next morning off again, and we started riding. But another issue was also we were doing the Friesland tour, and Friesland tour is really beautiful tour, and is I think it's especially beautiful because it's a lot of nature. It's very remote, and there's a lot of narrow bike paths, but not narrow as in oh my god I'm going to go in the water, but more like narrow. Oh wow, this is beautiful, and but narrow bike paths. And of course, the beast was not able to go there. And so a couple of days, I really had to make a detour only for her, of course, because the rest of the group was just doing the original route. But I had to reroute sometimes some parts for her and her friend, because she always had to go with a friend. And then there was another issue with the little fences. So sometimes you have a fence that you have to go, if you're riding on the dikes, on the embankments, there are sheep there, and they want the sheep to stay there, so they have fences. So the sheep cannot go out, and on your bike, you just have to open the fence, go through. Yeah, not with the beast. No, that was not working either. So it was really, and there were, fortunately, on one day, the fences were really just as wide as the beast. So both of them, they had to keep their hands inside, and everybody else was pushing slowly.
Oh my God.
So it was a very adventurous and in the end a very funny and very nice trip. And well, yeah, it was a lovely group of ladies. And,
Definitely something to remember.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
that was a memorable trip. And and I think also the lady with the disabilities, she really did a great job, and she was very happy the way we dealt with it. So yeah.
Yeah.
So, but the trike in Friesland is.
No.
Well, the trike is, but not the duo feet. And then I reported it also back to Romy. I said, well, okay, you ordered the duo feet, and yeah, well, that was
Let's
interesting.
not do that anymore. No, so this year we have a group as well, the Friesland tour. And she emailed me, but she's one of Tommy, from Tommy, her group. She said, yeah, can you maybe arrange a trike? And Tommy was in the same email. So Tommy sent me an email, Romy, a trike. No. No beast. No beast anymore.
No more beast.
No.
Now you know.
Yeah, now we know. Indeed, on that particular tour, it's not very handy. So
No.
now we arranged a tandem for her.
Oh,
So,
great.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
I hadn't heard that yet, so that's great.
So yeah,
Perfect.
you know, yeah. So yeah. And I think that's also something special if you're on a charter. Like there can just we do that extra because the group is most of the time one group. You can just arrange these little extra things which we normally don't do on an individual tour.
Yeah. That's a great way to accommodate big groups,
Yeah.
especially from overseas,
Yeah.
because it's such a big commitment.
Yeah, it is.
And then
Yeah.
you have a second position, the quality management. How does that work?
Well, that's a totally different thing. It's very interesting. I think back in the days we had surveys, but it was all on paper. So guests filled in their survey, and then Jan, his wife, Jan is the director of both bike tours, and his wife put it all in Excel. And this process was a lot of work, so to say. And I thought, okay, this can be way smarter and faster. So my idea was to make it digital. And we started this process 3 years ago, and now it's running very well. We receive the results after they submit their survey, and it's very good to see what the end result is. And I think our product, the tour guides and the crew do a very good job, because we mainly have very positive feedback. And that's such a great end result, and I'm very proud of how the results are. Yeah, yeah.
And then if someone says something bad about Tammy, you can report back to her.
Of course.
So it's a full circle.
Yeah, and Tommy sees that too. So when Tommy is a tour guide, she also sees her own survey results. And maybe it's nice to look at these results, because you should be proud of yourself. It's stunning. Yeah, only positive feedback.
That's amazing. Thank you. Is there anything you miss from the past?
No.
I think so. Everything's better today.
Well, yeah, I think we do a great job in making the product better with digitalization. So we do more digital stuff, which makes the product better. it's I think more people, but the how do you say that in English? The more the many.
The merrier?
Yeah,
The more the merrier. Yeah.
So yeah, the more people, the more fun.
Yeah, also more nationalities joined.
True. Yeah. You mean like as guest or in?
Not as guests, but also at the office. We
Yeah.
have more offices.
Yeah. So we have an American office, a German office, and in the office we still have several nationalities. We have Italian colleagues, German colleagues, American colleagues. Yeah.
Yeah, and how do you deal with that, with all the different nationalities?
I think you learn a lot from yourself and a lot about the nationalities. It's interesting to know how direct Dutch people are.
Yeah.
And I think I wasn't aware of the fact that we are so direct. And that's funny to see. And I think I need to keep that in mind when dealing with the colleagues from, for example, Germany or America. But it's also nice to see their point of view of the business, and we learn a lot from each other, and that's great.
Okay. We're coming closer to the end of the episode, so I want to ask you if you have any funny stories you want to share.
Well, you can start first.
Well, I already shared a few. Well, we're working with barges, and so it means that people have to get back on the boat on time, and if not, and then there's a difference between the big barges and the smaller ones. I usually work on the smaller ones, and but yeah, even then, the captain comes to me, Tammy, is everyone on board? Is everyone here? Because we're gonna move and we're gonna go to the next spot for where we're gonna spend the night. Yeah, okay, yeah, no, everybody's on board. Okay, and it was early in the morning because we were supposed to cruise. This one was we were supposed to cruise in the morning during breakfast. So we start, and as soon as we leave, we see this lady on the shore. And she's waving at the ship.
Oh, no.
And her husband is on the boat, and he's like, Tammy,
Nay.
that is my wife up there. Okay. And, well, we were in a place where there were two barges, and they were both doing the same direction. And our captain said, well, okay, we cannot go back. We'll just pick her up at the next stop when we start biking. So this lady, she went on board with the other boat, and she had breakfast with 20 other people, which was interesting for her. So that was good. It was a charter, so it was a whole group, and they chartered the whole ship. And the next year, they come back with the same group. They chartered the whole ship again. Of course, it was a different tour. And after a day of biking, we get back on the boat. Everybody goes have a shower. And Tammy's everybody in? Yeah, everybody's in. And so the boat leaves, and then again, so it happened twice in the same group. And but this time, the husband of someone else came up and, Tammy, mein Frau ist noch nie da. My wife is not here. My wife's not here. And then I looked outside, and there she was standing on the shore. It was not the same couple as the year before, but it did happen in the same group. This is not a very good publicity for tours with me, I guess.
But also interesting that they start to miss their wife when
after
the ship leaves.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
And in this case, we did go back, and of course we picked her up. And this is not a thing that happens every week. So for everybody that is listening, this is really not happening every week. Otherwise,
that's good to know.
Otherwise, we have to cut it out of the podcast. But it was a very funny story.
Yeah. Romy?
Well, I was thinking about a funny story, and I was once in Italy and Puglia, and then I went to a wine tasting, and who was there? My friend Tommy.
The world is so small.
I know, right? So we did a little wine tasting there, which was very nice.
Yeah, it was really funny.
Yeah.
It was really nice. And I was having the wine tasting, and then she just You just joined us.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
So besides work, we also
Yeah.
see each other personally.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for joining the podcast episode. It was
Thank
really
you.
insightful also to see how it has changed from the past and what new challenges occur and how international guests can also book group charters and be accommodated so well. So thank you for that. At the end of each episode, we ask a frequently asked questions from our guests. And a lot of guests are wondering, when does the ship sail? Because they might think that it sails overnight. But yeah,
No, we always say you'll sail during the day. We never sail during the night when everybody's in bed. So it's always either during breakfast with the people on it. I think that's what they mean, because sometimes we sail during breakfast and we have a sailing breakfast. Then, of course, the boat sails from the starting point to the finishing point where we are biking. So in the Netherlands, if we do the tulip tour and we have to go from Leiden to Haarlem, of course, the boat will sail to Haarlem, but the riders will take the bike. And every now and then we also barge or sail in the afternoon, and sometimes it's during dinner, usually before, but never at night. So it's always either during breakfast or during dinner or just before or after.
so they can sleep at peace.
Yes, they can. Yes.
And
Yeah.
one last question for Romy. Why should anybody book a boat bike tour?
Oh, well, because it's the best experience to experience a culture, the landscapes. To experience a country by bike is the best way.
Yeah.
And having the comfort of a ship sailing with you, so you don't need to pack your bags and from hotel to hotel. It's a very chic way to do a cycling holiday.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree, especially the packing and unpacking.
Exactly.
That is, always a bit of a hassle. So it's
Yeah.
nice that you can just drop it and
The
leave
hotel that travels
Yeah.
with you.
it. Yeah,
Exactly. Your
absolutely.
floating hotel.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you so much for
Thank
joining.
you.
Thank you.
And if our viewers or listeners have more questions, they can contact us or just visit our website at boatbiketours.com. And I hope to see you in the next episode.